My name is Ruby Dawson. I'm 33 years old, and until that night, I had spent over 2 years slowly convincing myself that small disrespect didn't count as a reason to leave. Adrian Cole was 29, polished, charming in rooms that weren't mine, the kind of man who could turn a sentence just enough to make you question your own reaction instead of his behavior. We lived in Raleigh. Well, technically, I lived there. The condo was mine. Mortgage, utilities, parking, HOA, internet, everything in my name. Adrian liked to call that detail irrelevant, mostly because the only things he consistently paid for were occasional groceries and whatever takeout he felt like ordering. At first, I didn't mind. He was funny, confident, social in ways I wasn't. But over time, I started noticing something. Adrian didn't ask. He took my car, my time, my space, and when I pushed back, just a little, he'd smile like I was being unreasonable. "Ruby, don't make everything heavier than it needs to be." That was his favorite line. That, and turning everything into a joke in front of other people. If I mentioned he hadn't told me where he'd been, I was tracking him. If I asked before he made plans in my home, I was controlling the vibe. If I said I needed something, anything, it became a punchline. Never loud, never aggressive, just constant, like being sanded down one thin layer at a time. And I told myself it wasn't enough to leave, because none of it was big, just small things, tiny adjustments. The kind you explain away because you don't want to admit what they add up to. The thing that ended it looked small too. I had volunteered to run a Saturday mobility clinic for a youth soccer group. I needed my car early, already had cones, tables, resistance bands, a cooler loaded in the back. Adrian knew that. We had talked about it the night before. Friday evening I got home, and my car was gone. No text, no missed call, nothing. I called once, no answer. I texted, "Did you take my car? I need it in the morning." No reply. Around 8:15, the door opened. Adrian walked in laughing, shopping bags in one hand, my keys spinning around his finger. Behind him was Kelsey, his friend, hovering awkwardly like she already knew she'd walked into something she didn't want to be part of. Adrian didn't even slow down when he saw me. "Relax," he said before I could speak. "We went to Fenton, dinner, walking around. You know." I kept my voice even. "Why didn't you text me? You knew I needed the car tomorrow." Kelsey shifted, eyes dropping. Adrian didn't. He rolled his eyes slightly, like I was exhausting him. "You always make everything heavier than it needs to be." 10 seconds. That's all it would have taken. "One text," I said. "That's it." He smiled, not embarrassed, annoyed. Then he said it. "Respect is earned, and you haven't earned mine." The room went quiet. Even the refrigerator hum felt louder. Kelsey didn't move. Adrian stood there like he had just won something. And in that moment, everything that had ever felt small suddenly aligned into something clear. I looked at him, not angry, not loud, just done. "What? Then you don't get access to me." He laughed. "Oh my God, Ruby, don't be dramatic." I nodded once. Then I turned, walked to the drawer, took the spare key, and went to the bedroom. Behind me, music started. Voices, laughter, like nothing had happened. Like everything hadn't just changed, but it had. Just not in the way he thought. At 8:42, I called a locksmith. Rekey, keypad reset, $165. While I waited, I booked a storage unit, 5x10, $112. First month discounted. Then I started packing. Not angry. Careful. His shoes. His jackets. The watch box he left on the dresser, like it belonged there. The frame print he insisted made my hallway feel less sterile. The throw blanket he picked out because he said my place felt too serious. Piece by piece, I removed him. By the time he noticed, half the closet was empty. He walked in, wine glass still in his hand, confusion flickering across his face. "Ruby, what are you doing?" I didn't stop folding. "You told me I haven't earned your respect." He blinked, processing, trying to recalibrate. "Okay, but come on, you're not seriously—" "You don't get to stay in my home after saying that to me, not in front of someone else. Not at all." The shift in his face was immediate. The confidence cracked. "Ruby, stop. You know I say things when I'm irritated." I kept folding. He stepped closer. "Are you really kicking me out over one sentence?" I finally looked at him again. "No, I'm ending this over a pattern. The sentence just made it impossible to ignore." For a second, he didn't have a response. Then his tone changed. Softer, measured, like he was stepping into a different script. "Hey, come on," he said quietly. "You embarrassed me in front of Kelsey." There it was. Not what he said. How it made him look. He ran a hand through his hair. "My dad used to talk over my mom. Sometimes I get defensive around Situations like that. A pause, carefully placed, like it was supposed to land as vulnerability. But all I could see was timing. Convenience. I picked up his overnight bag. I'll carry this downstairs for you. That's when the softness disappeared, replaced instantly. You're being sensitive, he snapped. Small, you can't handle a strong man. I didn't react. He pushed harder. Maybe that's why my last relationship didn't work either. Still, I stayed calm. I set the bag by the door. The rest will be ready tomorrow. Between 11 and 1. Silence. Then anger. Then disbelief. Then nothing. At 10:30, he left, Kelsey trailing behind him, quiet the entire time. At 11:14, my phone lit up. I'm at Kelsey's. We need to talk tomorrow. I replied once. Pickup is 11 to 1. Bring help if you need it. Then I put my phone down, because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I needed to explain myself. I just felt clear. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, not because I was anxious, because my body felt lighter, like something that had been pressing down on me for months had quietly lifted overnight. The condo was quiet. No background noise, no movement that didn't belong to me. Just stillness. Clean, intentional, mine. I got up, made coffee, and looked around, not at what was missing, but at what remained. Everything felt sharper, more defined. At 10:40, I carried the last of Adrian's boxes downstairs. By 10:55, everything was stacked neatly in the lobby. Shoes lined together, boxes labeled, suitcase upright. Not dumped, not thrown. Organized, controlled. Marcus, the concierge, stood behind the desk, watching quietly. You good? He asked. I nodded. I am. He didn't ask anything else. At 11:08, the front doors slid open. Adrian walked in, wearing sunglasses like he was arriving somewhere important, not being removed from someone else's life. Kelsey followed behind him, her expression already tense. His eyes went straight to the boxes, then to me, then back to the boxes again. You're really doing this, he said. Not a question, a realization. Yes. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Can we talk? 5 minutes. No. His jaw tightened. Ruby, you owe me that. I held his gaze. No, I don't. Kelsey stepped in gently, like she had rehearsed this. Hey, this just feels a little extreme, don't you think? I turned to her, not unkindly, but clearly. What feels extreme is telling someone they haven't earned respect, while living in their home and using their car. Marcus heard that. I saw it in the way his posture shifted. He didn't say anything, but something in his expression changed. Adrian exhaled sharply. You're twisting this. No, I said. I'm finally seeing it clearly. He tried again, softer this time. Ruby, you're going to regret being this cold. And for the first time, I almost smiled. No, I said quietly. I'm going to enjoy the quiet. That landed, not loudly, but deeply, because it wasn't reactive. It was final. He didn't have anything to do with that version of me. They loaded everything into Kelsey's SUV in 3 trips. On the last one, Adrian paused, like he expected me to say something else. Offer something. Anything. I didn't. He left. And just like that, he was gone. That night, I reset everything. Garage code, gate access, streaming passwords. I took the throw blanket off the couch and folded it into a box I didn't plan to open again. Then I went to bed and slept 9 straight hours. No tension, no overthinking, just rest. 4 days later, Adrian shifted from angry to strategic. The first message didn't come from him. It came from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Kelsey. He feels humiliated. At least meet him for coffee and show some respect. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed once. Respect is not something you demand after being disrespectful. Don't contact me again. Blocked. The next day, Marcus called while I was between patients. Hey, quick heads up, he said. He showed up asking to be let upstairs. Said he still gets mail there. And? I told him no unless you approved it. I leaned against the counter, steady. What else did he say? Marcus hesitated for half a second. He said you were controlling, that you were punishing him. I let out a small breath. Not frustration, just recognition. Thanks for letting me know. He paused, then added, for what it's worth, people who are right usually don't need a performance in the lobby. Unexpected ally. Number 1. That Friday, I found a note under my windshield wiper at the clinic. No envelope, no stamp. Just folded paper. I already knew. I miss who we were before you started keeping score. I'm willing to start over, if you're ready to act like a partner. I read it twice. Not because I needed to, because I wanted to confirm something. There was still no apology, just a cleaner version of the same message. Behave correctly, and he'd take me back. I took a picture, then threw it away. After that, the coincidences started. Coffee shop near the clinic, grocery store near my condo, once outside a bookstore in North Hills. Every time, the same script. Oh, Ruby, can we talk? No. You're really icing me out? Yes. This isn't who you are. You don't get to define me after this. He wanted a moment, a crack, a version of me that softened just enough for him to step back in. I didn't give him one. And the strangest part, my life was getting better, quieter, clearer. I went back to Run Club, picked up extra Saturday hours. Grant, my director, asked if I'd help build a new athlete recovery program. There was talk of a raise, about $7,800 a year. Turns out, peace is productive. Then came the fake emergency, 10:52 p.m. Unknown number. I left my medication in your hall closet. I need it tonight. Please don't be cruel. I stared at the message. Something about it felt off. Adrian didn't keep medication in my hall closet, but I checked anyway. Nothing. I replied, "Tell me the name and I'll bring it to the lobby." A long pause. Then, "It's personal. Just let me in for 2 minutes." I looked at the screen, and for the first time, I felt something different. Not anger, not frustration, precision. "No," I typed. "If you need something specific, I'll hand it off downstairs." Silence. The next afternoon, Marcus texted before Adrian even reached the desk. "He's outside, asking if you're home." I closed my laptop, because this time, I didn't want distance. I wanted witnesses, cameras, clarity. I went downstairs. He was standing just outside the glass doors. Sunglasses, casual clothes, expression carefully arranged, like he had practiced it. The moment he saw me, his face shifted, softened. "Ruby," he said, stepping closer, "are you really going to be this heartless?" I stopped a few feet away. Public space, neutral ground. "No," I said evenly, "I'm just finished." That hit him harder than anything else had. He blinked. "Is there someone else?" There wasn't. Not yet. But I didn't hesitate. "Even if there was, that wouldn't be your business." His expression tightened. "You're trying to hurt me." I shook my head. "No, I'm protecting my peace." For a second, he looked like he might say something else. Something sharper. But instead, he turned and walked away. Angry. Controlled. But losing ground. That night, my phone rang. My sister, Lena. "Hey," she said carefully. "He messaged me." Of course he did. What did he say? That he's worried about you. That you're isolating. That something's off. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them again. Clarity. I forwarded her everything. The messages. The note. The fake medication text. Silence on the line. Then, "So he disrespects you. Gets removed. And now he's trying to rewrite the story?" Exactly. A pause. Then Lena exhaled. "I'll handle it." Unexpected ally. Number 2. After that, he stopped reaching out to my family. But he didn't stop. Not yet. 2.5 weeks after the breakup, Adrian stopped pretending this was about reconciliation and started proving it was about control. It happened on a Tuesday. I was mid-session, walking a patient through a mobility drill, when my receptionist buzzed the room. "Ruby, there's a man in the lobby saying he's your boyfriend. He brought lunch." I didn't need to ask who. I already knew. I stepped out into the hallway, steady, composed, already deciding how this would go before I even reached the front. And there he was, Adrian, standing near the desk like he belonged there, fitted blazer, takeout bag in hand, that same practiced smile, easy, charming, just believable enough if you didn't look too closely. Like none of the last 2 weeks had happened. Like we were just working through something. I stopped a few feet away. Didn't smile. Didn't soften. "Ex-boyfriend," I said calmly. "Not boyfriend." The shift in the room was immediate. My receptionist stepped back. The air changed. Adrian's smile faltered for half a second, but he recovered quickly. Lowered his voice. "Ruby, I thought maybe we could talk privately." "You need to leave." His jaw tightened. "Don't do this here," he said quietly. "You already did it here." There it was. Image. Audience. Control. "I'm asking you to leave," I repeated. "I'm trying to be respectful," he said, the edge creeping back in. I held his gaze. "Then respect my no." By then, Grant had stepped out of his office. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. I turned slightly toward him. He needs to be escorted out, and not allowed back. Adrian's face flushed. The smile disappeared completely. "Wow," he said, letting out a short laugh. "So this is who you are now." Grant stepped forward, calm but firm. "You can leave on your own," he said, "or security can help you." Adrian stood there for a second, weighing options, measuring the room. Then he set the takeout bag on the counter like it meant something and walked out. The moment the door closed, the tension dropped. I took out my phone, photographed the bag, the receipt, the timestamp, documentation, not emotion. Then I threw the food away. After work, I sat across from a man named Reed, attorney, $425 consultation. I laid everything out. Messages, call logs, the note, the fake emergency text, the workplace incident, a timeline, clean, precise, undeniable. He reviewed it quietly, then looked up at me. "She's forcing contact," he said. "You're not overreacting." That mattered more than I expected. "Send a cease and desist," he continued. "If she ignores it, your case gets stronger." So I did. Certified mail. Signature required. $38. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A Venmo request. $640. From Adrian. The note read, "Reimbursement for shared household expenses." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I pulled my records. 8 months. 6 transfers. Total, $714. My average monthly cost for the condo, utilities, parking, HOA, internet, about $2,460. I declined the request. Added one line. "You lived here nearly rent-free. Do not contact me about money again." An hour later, Lena texted me screenshots. Adrian's private social page. Vague posts. Surviving controlling women. Being discarded without warning. I didn't respond. Didn't engage. Because narratives without access don't hold. Then he tried something worse. 6:18 a.m. Voicemail. Unknown number. His voice. Shaky, urgent. "Ruby, it's me. I'm at urgent care. They need my emergency contact information, and I didn't know who else to call. Please, call me back." For 5 seconds, I felt it. That pull. That instinct to respond. Then I listened again. No background noise. No voices. No intercom. Nothing. I called the urgent care he named. No patient by his name. That was the moment something in me locked into place. Not emotionally. Strategically. I forwarded the voicemail to Reed. He replied simply, "Do not respond. Keep documenting." Later that day, a message came from a number in Georgia. Adrian's brother. "Stop humiliating him. He just has trouble expressing himself." I sent one screenshot. The original message. "Respect is earned, and you haven't earned mine." Nothing after that. Around the same time, I met Ethan. Run club. Simple. Easy. No performance. No tests. Just conversation that didn't feel like it was being scored. We went out for tacos a week later. Sat on a patio. Talked about nothing important. Which felt like everything. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to manage someone else's reactions. Then Raleigh proved itself small. Because 2 weeks after that, Adrian found us. We were at a restaurant near 5 Points. Mid-conversation, mid-laugh. When the air shifted, I didn't need to turn around to know. But I did, and there he was. Standing at the edge of the table, wearing the same confidence like it still worked. "So this is why you've been acting righteous," he said. Ethan looked at me. Didn't react. Didn't interrupt. Just waited. I stood slightly. "Adrian, leave." He ignored me. Looked at Ethan instead. He acts calm so he can look innocent. Ethan didn't even blink. "I don't know you," he said evenly, "and I'd like to keep it that way." Adrian laughed. Sharp. Unsteady. Then looked back at me. "I made one comment. One. And you replaced me like I was nothing?" I held his gaze. "No," I said. "I ended it because that comment matched how you treated me for months. People were starting to watch. Phones lowering. Conversations pausing." Adrian grabbed the empty chair at our table. Sat down. "I'm not leaving until you admit you've been cruel." That was it. The moment it crossed from personal to public disruption, the manager stepped in. Calm. Professional. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Adrian's expression cracked, emotion flooding in too fast. Tears. Anger. Desperation. You don't understand." "I do," the manager said. "You need to leave." Adrian stood abruptly and knocked the water glass across the table. It spilled. Across Ethan's side. Onto the floor. Silence. Then movement. Staff stepping in. Someone calling for security. Adrian froze for half a second, then walked out before things escalated further. But it didn't matter, because the damage was done. The manager came back with a written incident report, confirmed camera footage, everything documented. The next morning, Reed filed. No contact civil order. And just like that, this stopped being something I hoped would end on its own, and became something I was prepared to finish. The hearing was scheduled a little over a month after the restaurant incident. By then, I wasn't nervous. I was prepared. I had a binder. Not thick for drama. Thick for clarity. Screenshots printed and organized in order. Call logs. Photos. The note from my windshield sealed in a plastic sleeve. The cease and desist receipt. The Venmo request. A transcript of the voicemail. The incident report from the restaurant. Even timestamps from the clinic. Not emotion. Evidence. Adrian walked in 10 minutes before the hearing. Beige sweater. Low neutral tones. Carefully chosen. Like credibility could be worn. He didn't look at me at first. Then he did. And for a split second, there was something there. Not regret. Not apology. Expectation. Like even now. Something in him believed I would soften. I didn't. When our case was called, we stepped forward. Reed spoke clearly. Calm. Structured. He didn't dramatize anything. He didn't need to. He walked the judge through the sequence. The original statement. The breakup. The repeated attempts at contact after I had said no. Third-party messages. The fake emergency. The workplace appearance. The restaurant confrontation. Step by step. It wasn't emotional. It was undeniable. Adrian's lawyer tried to reframe it. A misunderstanding after a breakup. An attempt to find closure. But the timeline didn't support that. Because closure doesn't ignore boundaries. And it doesn't escalate when denied. The judge turned to Adrian. Do you dispute making the statement, respect is earned and you haven't earned mine? Adrian hesitated. Then, I was upset. I didn't mean it literally. The judge nodded slightly. Then said something that settled everything. Whether you meant it literally is not the issue. The issue is that once the relationship ended, you repeatedly ignored a clearly stated request for no contact. Silence. Then Reed played the voicemail. His voice filled the room. Smaller than I remembered. Less controlled. Almost unfamiliar. For the first time, it didn't feel personal. It felt distant. Like something I used to know. The judge reviewed the file one more time. Then looked up. The order is granted. 12 months. No contact. No appearances at my residence, my workplace, or organized activity groups. Which meant no more coincidental run-ins. No more unexpected appearances. No more access. Legally enforced. But emotionally, that door had already closed. Outside the courtroom, Adrian tried once more. Not with words. Just a look. Like I had broken something that was supposed to stay intact. I didn't stop. I didn't respond. I just kept walking. And that was the last time I saw him. 3 months later, life feels different. Not louder. Not bigger. Just steady. The kind of steady you don't notice until you've lived without it. Grant promoted me to lead therapist on the clinic expansion. The new program we built is growing faster than expected. I replaced my living room furniture, not to fill space, but to reflect it. Everything in that room now is something I chose. The condo feels like mine again, not shared, not negotiated, just mine. And Ethan is still here. No pressure, no performance, no power games. He texts when he says he will. I do the same. We make plans without testing each other. We talk without keeping score. And the strangest part? No one calls that needy. No one turns simple respect into something complicated. It just works. 2 weeks after the court hearing, I got one last call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Ruby, a woman's voice said softly. This is Adrian's mother. I paused. I'm not calling to argue, she continued. I saw the paperwork. Her voice held something I hadn't expected. Not defense. Not denial. Just understanding. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't realize how far this had gone. I didn't say anything. She exhaled quietly. He's always confused admiration with control, she added, and boundaries with rejection. A pause. Then, respect that has to be demanded usually isn't respect. I closed my eyes briefly. It's obedience, she finished, just dressed up to look like something else. After we hung up, I sat there for a moment, not reliving anything, not questioning anything, just letting it settle, because that was it. That was the truth underneath everything. Respect isn't silence while someone uses your home, your time, your car, and your patience like they belong to them. It isn't accepting humiliation because the person doing it knows how to make it sound harmless afterward. It isn't staying available after someone tells you, clearly, that they don't value you. Real respect is quieter than that. It looks ordinary. It looks like asking before taking, like sending one message, like not turning love into leverage. Adrian thought respect meant I would tolerate whatever he did and still leave the door open. He was wrong. Access is not unconditional. Not to my home. Not to my peace. Not to me.